Ever since we got married, I've meticulously maintained the image of a sweet, docile girl in front of my husband, until that night in the bar when I landed in a police station for beating up a creep. It was my husband who came to bail me out. One second, I was passionately arguing my case with a police officer. The next, I fell completely silent at the sight of a familiar figure. That familiar silhouette drew closer until he stood right in front of me, looking down at where I was huddled in the corner. When that flawlessly handsome face was mere inches from mine, I knew I was done for. Properly done for. My painstakingly crafted and maintained soft girl persona had utterly collapsed. I bit my lower lip and called out darling in a sugary voice. Yet, through the dark window, I was certain I was wearing the most distorted smile of my life. Shang Xingzhou's expression remained unchanged. He simply reached out to pull me up, then draped his overcoat over my shoulders, covering the strappy dress that had slipped during the scuffle. The officer seemed not to have noticed my sudden change in demeanor. Still smarting from my last retort, he raised his voice to reclaim the upper hand. You're saying he sat at your table? You knew nothing, and then the back of his head just started bleeding. Why not say the bottle on your table grew legs and smashed itself against his skull? I was on the verge of tears, knowing there was no way to salvage the story. Might as well come clean. Even if I said that, would you believe me? Absolute nonsense. Be serious? The officer slapped the table in frustration. I shot a pleading look at my best friend in the corner, but the woman who had been arguing tenaciously with the officer just moments ago was now playing possum, pretending to be passed out. I cursed inwardly, so unreliable. But then, I stole a glance at him from the corner of my eye. I was scared too. He was being far to come. It felt like the eerie stillness before a storm. Seeing my defiance deflate, the officer's tone softened. He cleared his throat and looked at my husband. All right, it's not a major issue. After all, your wife was harassed first. However, under no circumstances should one resort to physical violence. The other party is also in the wrong and is willing to mediate face to face. Sign here in a moment and you're free to go. As he finished speaking, a portly man emerged from the next room. A distinguished comb-over gleamed under the lights, his head wrapped thickly in bandages. My handiwork. He seemed to flinch upon seeing me, shrinking back noticeably. Me putting on a show in front of my husband, are we? Stopping a good 5 meters away, the comb-over man refused to come closer. His tone was dramatic, as if he'd narrowly escaped death. Madam, no. My lady, thank you and your friend for sparing my life. I really shouldn't have asked you to have a drink with me. I had too much, I apologize. With that, he bowed deeply. The movement must have tugged at some injury, making him grimace in pain. Although the apology sounded sincere, in front of Shang Xingzhou, it was just laying out my crimes one by one for all to see. My face turned ashen. A misunderstanding, all a misunderstanding. I just wanted to sign and get out of there. After tonight, my seemingly perfect marriage was probably over. But then my husband took a few steps forward and gracefully extended his left hand towards the comb-over man. The 500,000 pounds mechanical watch on his wrist flashed coldly under the light. A mix of confusion and fear crossed the man's face. My husband explained calmly. A handshake to bury the hatchet. The comb-over man seemed to recognize quality. After a lingering glance at the watch, he bent forward with an ingratiating smile to shake hands. The next second, a scream worthy of a slaughtered pig echoed through the station. I saw the veins bulge on the back of my husband's hand. He let go and said mildly, apologies. Used a bit too much strength. I was secretly thrilled. Bloody hell, so cool. But sadness quickly followed. Damn it, such a cool guy was about to become my ex-husband. My thoughts were in chaos when my hand was enveloped by his warm palm. Shang Xingzhou looked down at me, his eyelids half lowered. Giuliani, let's go home. Every step was a struggle. I thought, home? What home? Do I even have a home left? In utter despair, I glanced back at my friend. She was now fully revived, giving me a cheerful thumbs up and silently mouthing fight on. Great, you can still smile. I certainly can't. My fear wasn't without reason. After all, I was the one with a guilty conscience about the product not matching the description. After my mother passed away, my father remarried. My stepmother couldn't stand me and persuaded my father to pack me off to New York. Under the guise of studying abroad. In reality, it was just giving me a small sum of money to get rid of me, leaving me to fend for myself. It sounds miserable, but fortunately, my father's genes came through. I had a bit of a head for business, turned money into more money, and lived quite comfortably abroad. That's also where I met my best friend. But the good times didn't last. Global economic fluctuations affected major domestic companies. As a commercial pawn, I was dragged back by my father and offered up for an arranged marriage. Naturally, I refused. My best friend even flew back specifically to rescue me. After countless sleepless nights of scheming, I had drafted no fewer than 3 plans to call off the wedding. But my father knew me well. He knew I wouldn't give up easily. He calmly produced a photo of the prospective groom and said earnestly, "Girls have to get married eventually. It's just happening a couple of years early. I raised you all these years. It's not easy. It's time for you to repay me. Besides, ask around, do the maths. Given his family background and looks, you're the one marrying up. You'd never find anyone this good on your own." I snorted disdainfully and glanced at the photo on my father's phone. Then, my eyes lit up. In ancient times, there was Wang Jiajun marrying for peace. Today, there's Liani sacrificing herself for her father. Forget marriage in that instant. I'd even thought of our children's names. My father was pleased with my change of heart. He patted my shoulder approvingly. "Good girl. You'll live a life of ease once you're married. But there's one thing I should mention. I told the Shang family a little white lie when introducing you." I scoffed. "What's the big deal, my father?" "I said you were pure, cute, naive. A little princess who's been very sheltered, carefree and happy." The smile froze on my face. I raised my voice. "You call that a little white lie? A monumental lie? Did any of that have the slightest connection to who I really was?" My father's expression turned visibly guilty. "My memories are still from before your mom passed. Back then, you really were like that." My stepmother lost patience. "Enough already. Why explain so much to her? Just tell her to play the pretty vase role properly." "Fine. A pretty vase, is it?" I didn't believe I couldn't play that part. My best friend was horrified by my sudden surrender. "Giuliani, are you out of your mind? Anyone can see your dad and that wicked stepmother of yours are selling you off. How can you agree? Do you have to get the short end of the stick?" Her tirade over the phone cut off abruptly as I sent her a photo. The sharp intake of breath she took was clearly audible over the line. "You know, I think arranged marriages are the greatest invention ever. Seems like the guy is getting the worst deal here." That night, I tossed and turned, unable to sleep, and took a closer look at my fiancé's photo. Handsome, truly handsome. But putting aside my shallowness, why did he look vaguely familiar? Shang Xingzhou and I had a whirlwind marriage. We formally introduced ourselves on our first official meeting, and got married on our second. Since the marriage certificate came later, even sitting on the same bed on our wedding night, I still wasn't sure which character is middle. Naming was, after marriage, I dutifully played the role my father had described. A delicate princess who couldn't lift a finger, speaking in a sugary, high-pitched voice all the time. After a while, I almost forgot I could split a durian barehanded. 6 months into our marriage, while Shang Xingzhou and I weren't exactly inseparable, we were respectful and cordial. This date was better than most marriages I read about online, and better than my aimless life abroad. The only downside was, maintaining this fake facade was utterly exhausting. Fortunately, Shang Xingzhou bore heavy responsibilities at his company, was incredibly busy, and frequently traveled across the country for meetings. Our time together was scarce, giving me much-needed breathing room. This breathing room, naturally, meant having fun with my best friend when he was away. But if you play by the river, you'll eventually get your feet wet. Clearly, this time, I got caught. The ride home was silent. The car sliced smoothly through the city's vibrant nightscape. The neon lights cast shifting shadows on Shang Xingzhou's face, making his expression even more inscrutable. My palms were clammy. I only dared sneak glances at his cold, handsome profile. Storms often brew in extreme calm. His silence made my heart race even more. Just as my mind was running wild, the car stopped at a red light. Shang Xingzhou tapped the brakes lightly and called my name. "Giuliani." Sensing him about to turn, my heart leapt into my throat. The feeling of being caught napping in math class and called on by the teacher. I wasn't ready to face his questions. I squeezed my eyes shut, tensed my body, and pretended to be fast asleep. I could feel his gaze resting on me. I counted silently in my head. The light turned green, and Shang Xingzhou slowly started the car. I heard a soft snort. "Stop pretending. Your eyelashes are fluttering so hard they're creating a draft in here." Me? Doesn't matter. Rather than opening my eyes to face the music, I chose to keep playing dead. But what must come will come. I worried all the way, but the car still stopped at the entrance to our villa. Shang Xingzhou didn't get out, nor did he call me. He lowered the window halfway. The metallic click of a lighter sounded beside me. The scent of tobacco, carried by the night breeze, faintly reached my nose. In 6 months of marriage, I'd rarely seen him smoke. The few times were under immense work pressure. It was clear Shang Xingzhou was in a terrible mood now. There was no hiding. I resigned myself, opened my eyes, and feigned drowsiness. "Darling, are we home now?" Hearing my own artificially sweet, high-pitched voice was rather embarrassing. I could have dug out a dream castle with my toes. Shang Xingzhou stubbed out his cigarette. The electronic car door opened automatically. Now he seemed willing to play along with this awkward charade. He glanced at me and said flatly, "Awake. Get out." Back home, Shang Xingzhou carried on as usual, washing up, watching financial news, handling work, not a single word about the incident at the station. What was this? This was psychological torture. Water dripping on stone. My mind was in torment. After lingering outside his study for a long time, I finally resolved to face my fate and knocked. A warrior facing death values a swift end. Shang Xingzhou's indifferent voice came from inside, sparing with words as usual. "Just an enter." I took a deep breath and blurted out everything I'd rehearsed all evening. "Shang Xingzhou, let's get divorced tomorrow. I won't take a penny of your assets. But you have to save me some face publicly. Just say we were incompatible, otherwise, I'm afraid I'll never be able to marry again." By then, my eyes inexplicably welled up. Who would willingly let go of such a prize catch like my husband? The pen he'd been twirling between his fingers was suddenly slammed onto the desk. The not too loud sound still made me flinch. I must have said something wrong. His face visibly darkened. His gaze turned sharp as he looked at me. There was a hint of gritted teeth in his words. "And who exactly do you plan to marry next?" I pouted, already picturing myself single. "That depends on when my Mr. Right appears." Shang Xingzhou was genuinely angered into laughter. "You're actually considering this, then?" Hope sparked in my eyes. "Ever since we left the station, you've been so distant. Isn't that a sign you want a divorce?" His gaze was deep and probing as he looked at me. His voice light as he countered, "I'm being distant. Mrs. Shang, are you sure it's not your own guilty conscience?" He had me there. I blinked. Thought for a moment, he had a point just a day ago. I would have described Shang Xingzhou's demeanor as reserved. As us being respectful and harmonious, a wave of joyful relief washed over me. My voice lifted. "So, you mean you won't divorce me?" He tapped the desk lightly with a bent finger. I never once considered divorce. Even with this affirmation, I still felt uneasy. After all, who could calmly accept that their sweet, gentle wife was actually a party animal with impressive combat skills? Didn't he feel angry, deceived? I stole a cautious glance at him. Seeing his brows relaxed as if in a better mood, I ventured hesitantly. "Then, about me getting into a fight and ending up at the police station. What do you say?" Shang Xingzhou stood up and was before me into strides. He reached out and ruffled my hair with a hint of indulgence. Quite impressive. "Didn't let yourself get bullied at all." I was completely disarmed by his sudden gesture, feeling dizzy and lightheaded. It wasn't until I lay in bed, cheeks burning, that it belatedly dawned on me. What did he mean by that? Was he genuinely acknowledging my fighting prowess? Marital crisis averted. My best friend was genuinely happy for me. She declared grandly, "My old man's got me grounded. No matter, I'll climb the wall. Let's go celebrate, sis." Me? Who gave her the nerve to say that? Did she think I had the guts to push my luck? I wasn't brave enough to court trouble right under the radar. Cautiously, I texted back, "Let's lay low for a bit, reduce contact." My friend, recalling the oppressive aura of my husband's cool gaze, thought this wise. "Good point. Wishing you safety." "You too." To salvage my image in my husband's eyes, I decided to find something to do. As a naturally gifted art student, if I couldn't be in a studio painting gracefully, the only alternative was manual labor on a construction site. So, I ended up at a construction site. Well, the mural studio next to it as a painter. Splashing color on a tiny canvas felt stifling. I preferred the feeling of wielding a brush on a large wall. The studio owner was a woman about my age. We even shared the experience of living abroad. She had also recently returned and started the studio with family support. She had a gentle, elegant look exuding an artist's temperament. Pity she couldn't keep quiet. She saw my portfolio and was very impressed, slapping the table. Her first words were, "Bloody hell. You're good." My job was secured on the spot, where my husband couldn't see me. I boldly returned to being myself. I could carry a whole box of paint cans in one go. Move tall ladders around by myself. The boss was impressed by my strength on one hand, and appreciated my skill and down-to-earth personality on the other. We had a lot to talk about. We started with school, life anecdotes, and eventually landed on relationships. But soon, I sensed something amiss. The boss carried a faint, familiar scent of perfume. It was the same as my husband's. I was sure it wasn't a coincidence because the scent was rather unique. My best friend made it when she was bored and grounded by her strict father, throwing in all sorts of random ingredients, intending to create something awful. The result was surprisingly pleasant. My friend generously gave me a bottle. I sprayed a bit in my wardrobe almost daily, especially since I asked incredulously, "You said your partner's surname is what?" The boss answered without hesitation, "Shang, of course." My heart sank into an icy abyss. Disheartened, I asked, "Is he also about 188 centimeters, really good looking?" The boss beamed as if she found a kindred spirit. "Wow. Are you psychic? How did you know? At the thought of her beloved, the boss smiled sweetly and shyly. I, however, felt my lips tremble, on the verge of tears. My husband, he was cheating. Otherwise, how could such a coincidence exist? And the other woman was right before my eyes. The sound of my heart breaking was deafening. Though heartbroken that my husband was such a man, I couldn't let the boss before me remain deceived. Words were not enough. I had to make her see clearly. Suppressing the urge to burst into tears of sadness, I grasped the boss's hands. What a coincidence. My husband's surname is Shangtu. How about we get them both to come tonight? Let's meet. The boss's eyes lit up, agreeing with the idea. I sent Shang Xingzhou a message with a heavy heart. Darling, can you pick me up from work? Then, without waiting for his reply, I sent him the location. Typing showed on the screen for a long time, but no new message appeared. The last shred of hope in my heart was extinguished. He was feeling guilty. Didn't that confirm my suspicion? After a long while, my husband simply sent back, okay? I immediately looked up and asked the boss, is your partner coming? The boss's expression was filled with happiness. He is, yours? I feigned strength, forcing out the words, he's coming too. Though I was still puzzled inside. How dare Shang Xingzhou do this? Did he have a clone? As closing time approached, I grew increasingly anxious, even wanting to retreat from the impending confrontation. While I worried, the boss was overjoyed. Humming a tune, she shared her happiness, taking my boyfriend to meet the family tonight, and also meeting my new sister-in-law and my cousin. Won't send me a photo. I'm so curious. Time ticked by agonizingly slow. It was unbearable. I simply set up a ladder, grabbed some paint, and started doodling on the studio's inspiration wall. The boss had reserved this wall for stress relief, seeking inspiration, or finding one's groove. Initially just to kill time, I gradually got into it. My heart settled amidst the splashes of color on the wall, until I heard the boss's delighted cry, sweetie, you're finally here, and Shang Xingzhou's deep, languid voice, behave. My hand froze, my legs went weak, and I kicked over a paint bucket at my feet, sending it tumbling off the ladder. I bent down to catch it, lost my balance, and plunged face first towards the ground. I shut my eyes, bracing for an embarrassing impact with the floor. The expected pain didn't come. I fell into a warm embrace. He held me securely. His unique, pleasant scent filled my senses. Beside my ear, his strong, rhythmic heartbeat echoed in his chest. I looked up, falling straight into the deep pools of Shang Xingzhou's eyes. Genuine concern flickered within. My heart pounded like a drum. The boss stood not far away, staring at us dumbfounded, her face a picture of disbelief. I snapped back to reality. I pushed myself out of Shang Xingzhou's arms, and my voice came out choked with sobs. You scoundrel! How could you hurt two women at once? If you didn't like me, you could have just divorced me. What kind of man cheats? With every accusatory word I spat out, Shang Xingzhou's expression grew more complex. He stared at me, his brow furrowing deeper. Sadness flooded my heart. The more I spoke, the sadder I became. You kept saying no divorce, yet you pulled us behind my back. If you won't divorce, then I will. From now on, we're like. I couldn't find a suitable metaphor. Tearfully, I looked at the paintbrush in my hand. With a slight effort, the brush snapped in my palm. I threw the pieces to the ground. We're like this brush broken into. The air froze. The boss didn't dare breathe. She cautiously approached Shang Xingzhou and whispered timidly, Cousin, is this what Grandpa meant by my frail, delicate sister-in-law? What did she say? Sister-in-law? My eyes brimmed with tears, but I didn't dare let them fall. I even suppressed my sniffles. Just then, a man as tall and well-built as Shang Xingzhou entered the studio carrying several bags. He walked straight to the boss. Sweetie, here are all the things you wanted. The boss pouted. Shang-Chi, are you a tortoise? Why are you so slow? Shang-Chi. My mind raced. Great. If the boss's sister-in-law remark had killed me, now I was well and truly buried. I didn't dare look Shang Xingzhou in the eye now. Yet Shang Xingzhou reached out and gently cupped my cheek. His slightly calloused thumb wiped away paint stains from my face with deliberate slowness. Giuliani, he said my name very softly. It almost sounded like the king of hell calling the roll. Think carefully about how you're going to explain this to me. I could tell from the boss's anxious look that she desperately wanted to save me. Her sister-in-law. She even mentioned a family dinner to try and keep Shang Xingzhou there. But Shang Xingzhou was unmoved. I'll deal with matters in my own household first. I followed Shang Xingzhou out. The setting sun cast golden fragments. Children played noisily nearby. Car horns sounded in the distance. What a perfect scene of joy highlighting sorrow. His car was parked right outside. I stood beside Shang Xingzhou, trying to gauge his mood through the tinted window. When I'm nervous, I fidget with my fingers, but my fingers still hurt from the last time. So I stepped forward and started picking at the car window instead. Shang Xingzhou watched me silently from behind. I was rehearsing my explanation in my head when he spoke first. Because we both have a surname Shang, and because of some coincidences, you suspected I was cheating. Asking me to pick you up was just a pretext. You really wanted to see me exposed, right? I turned to him, stunned. Of course. Someone who navigated the business world with ease would also have flawless logic. In real-life situations, all my earlier righteous indignation was gone. I hung my head dejectedly. You said it all. What's left for me to say? I caught a flicker of exasperation in Shang Xingzhou's expression. Why would you think I'd cheat? Don't you trust me? That was a heavy accusation. I waved my hands frantically, then pondered his question. Why? The real reason was even harder to admit. Ever since my mother died, I'd never experienced being cherished. Right after going abroad, I was a mess. Even now, I retained many bad habits, by all accounts. Shang Xingzhou and I lived in different worlds, yet we were married. My underlying insecurity would periodically sprout, bloom, and make me miserable. So, when another woman appeared near him, I naturally assumed his choice wouldn't be me, especially since we both knew this marriage was, at its core, a business arrangement. It had commercial value, not emotional value. Any sadness or joy I felt in this marriage stemmed from my own greed. I had thought more than once. I probably liked Shang Xingzhou. I had wanted to live out my life with him under the persona my father gave me. But fate had other plans. I kept stumbling, one after another. I buried my head even lower, almost self-destructive. As you can see, my father oversold me. I'm no delicate kitten. I can beat up creeps, snap brushes with my bare hands, and there are other things you haven't seen. I can. Liani, Shang Xingzhou closed the distance between us. Instinctively, I took a step back, my back pressing against the car. He cradled my lowered face in his hands, his voice soft like a lover's whisper. You never have to be anything but yourself. My nose done. Since returning home, my father had assigned me a fake persona. My stepmother told me to be a pretty vase. Only Shang Xingzhou told me to be myself. He sighed softly, as if with pity. Anything else you want to say? Any other questions? Let's clear them up now. Don't misunderstand me again, all right? My lips quivered. Pitifully, I held out my hand from gripping too hard earlier. My fingertips were still red. Darling, my hand hurts. After hastily resolving our domestic affair, Shang Xingzhou still took me to the Shang family dinner. Our tardiness meant we were the last to arrive at the large round table, which was nearly full. The Shang family was vast and influential. I still couldn't put names to all the relatives, but that didn't matter much. Clearly, my boss, now my sister-in-law, worried about me and had taken my side. Tattling to Grandpa beforehand. Grandpa harumphed the moment Shang Xingzhou walked in and started settling scores. Heard you've been bullying Liani? Shang Xingzhou looked innocent, smiling. How would I dare? My image as a helpless, bullied soft girl seemed deeply ingrained. Grandpa, fearing I'd be taken advantage of, backed me up word for word. I'm warning you, don't think you can do as you please just because Liani is gentle. If she can't handle you, I'll break your legs myself, old bones or not. His words made me squirm internally. I stole another glance at Shang Xingzhou. Shang Xingzhou was still smiling, repeating, Grandpa. How would I dare? But the upward lilt in his voice made it sound a bit like sarcasm. After all, the frail me had just snapped a sturdy paintbrush with my bare hands. With everyone present, the dinner began. Shang Xingzhou had been busy the first 6 months of our marriage, so this was my first formal family dinner. Grandpa paid me extra attention. He personally served me a bowl of his favorite fish soup. Seeing the vibrant green spring onions floating on top, I accepted it with a sweet smile, while internally debating whether to pick them out later. What if Grandpa didn't like picky eaters? What if picking out spring onions annoyed someone? After a quick mental struggle, I decided to bravely eat the spring onions, but the bowl meant for me was intercepted by Shang Xingzhou. Grandpa looked at him, baffled. If you want some, get it yourself. Why are you snatching my precious granddaughter-in-law's bowl? Shang Xingzhou picked up his chopsticks and began meticulously removing the spring onions from the soup. His voice was calm. Liani doesn't like spring onions. Now it was my turn to be stunned. How did Shang Xingzhou know I didn't like them? I had never shown any dietary preferences at home. Thinking back, I realized our housekeeper never used spring onions when cooking. So, he must have specifically looked into my preferences. I lowered my head, feigning shyness, letting my hair hide my face. Out of sight, I grinned broadly. But then I reflected, did I know too little about him? With that thought, I secretly texted my boss, no. Now my sister-in-law, who was currently digging in with gusto. What's your brother like? My sister-in-law gave me a strange look from across the large table. As you see, what you see is what you get. A rare find. Sis, why ask now? Did my brother do something to make you doubt his steadfast love? Feeling a bit guilty, I typed, I just feel I don't know him well enough. My sister-in-law gave me a knowing look, then put down her chopsticks, her fingers flying across the keyboard, giving me a crash course from his academic and business achievements to how old he was when Grandpa last spanked him. Finally, she hesitantly sent another message. It's just my brother seemed to have a girlfriend in the States before. He'd fly over to see her often, staying for days. But don't worry, sis, that's long over. He hasn't been to the US in ages, probably fearing I'd start a fight, she added with full survival instinct. He only loves you now. Looking at Shang Xingzhou's profile as he focused on picking at spring onions, and thinking of my numb life in New York, a greedy thought arose, I wish I'd met him sooner. My sister-in-law probably never imagined that her first hire for her slacker studio would be her own sister-in-law. We hit it off and decided to build the studio together. I began cramming art knowledge. My father had probably boasted that I was a top art graduate from abroad, because 1/3 of our home study was filled with art-related books. If not for the cleaner, the dust would be inches thick. My husband, working in the study, looked surprised. Has the sun risen in the west? Pretending not to catch his mild sarcasm, I browsed the shelves, admiring the beautiful covers. Then, my gaze fell on a book written by my mother before she passed. It looked old, pages dog-eared, clearly read many times. Something bulky was inside, likely filled with my husband's annotations, as he was a meticulous reader. My husband was a fan of my mother's writing. Overjoyed, I pulled the book from the shelf and ran to my husband. Darling, you actually read Mom's books. As I waved it, items tucked between the pages fluttered out. Airline tickets and a photograph. Before I could see the photo clearly, my husband swiftly scooped it up. The tickets were harder to gather quickly. My eyes fixed on the destination, New York. Connecting this to what my sister-in-law told me. So, his ex was also from New York? The content of that photo was self-explanatory. A pang of jealousy twisted inside me. Shang Xingzhou took the book and carefully slipped the scattered tickets and photo back inside. Perhaps not wanting to bring up his ex, he ruffled my hair. Mom was an excellent writer. My jealousy vanished instantly. My heart swelled with his praise for my mother. My husband was a fan of my mother's. The feeling was indescribably wonderful. But a woman's emotions are a roller coaster. After immense joy, sadness struck. I fidgeted with my hands, my eyes growing moist. It's such a shame Mom never saw me get married. So she probably doesn't know her hopeless daughter married such an exceptional man. Shang Xingzhou gently wrapped his arms around my shoulders, effortlessly pulling me into an embrace. Leonie, you are wonderful. And she knows. If you'd told me 6 months ago that my relationship with Shang Xingzhou would grow intimate through a series of farcical incidents, I'd never have believed it. Was fate finally smiling on me? But I'd never been a lucky child. This time was no exception. Shang Xingzhou took me to a charity gala. I wore elegant makeup and a sophisticated gown, a far cry from the girl who could drink a whole table under the table at a club. Despite being dressed to the nines, the gala felt odd. There'd been no prior announcement. The host was my husband's business rival, the Shen Group. Originally, the business landscape in City A was a three-way split. After my marriage to Shang Xingzhou, the Zhu and Shen groups allied, gradually leaving the Shen family behind in the competition. With their own company in turmoil, why would they host a charity gala? Shang Xingzhou patiently explained, probably to project an image of a socially responsible entrepreneur, boost the company's profile. Even so, why was my left eyelid twitching? My intuition screamed trouble. And trouble arrived. The head of the Shen group took the stage and made a speech dripping with ill intent. Now that the Shang and Zhu families are united in marriage, their companies are flourishing. Seeing these to such a perfect match brings me, as an uncle, great joy. I have a modest gift for them. As he finished, the large screen lit up with photos of my life in the US. Slide after slide played and the expressions in the room shifted. On a dark New York street, I staggered, a bottle in hand. In a dimly lit club, my table littered with empties. An arranged marriage hinges on a positive public image. Shang Xingzhou, born into privilege, was a golden boy. To match him and secure the Shang connection, my father had spun a grand tale, crafting me into a sheltered, ethereal, delicate princess. How deeply this image was believed need not be said. Now, the lie was exposed. The perfect couple, the match made in heaven, was a fraud. The gala was full of journalists. I was destined to be tomorrow's business headline in City A. Shareholders sensing trouble would sell, causing stock prices for Shang and Zhu to plummet, benefiting the Shen Group. Even I could see this was a calculated business attack. My past didn't matter. What mattered was I was a catalyst, the pawn. My marriage was too. I didn't dare look at my father's furious face or the Shang family's disappointment. Even less did I dare see my husband's icy expression. I only felt the chilling aura around him grow colder. It felt as if voices of condemnation swirled around me. The world spun. My soul felt torn. But I knew with the photos as evidence I couldn't explain. Because that was me. After my mother died, my father abandoned me. My life abroad was truly that desolate, numb. I'd even wished more than once I could join my mother. It wasn't until I met my best friend that things began to improve. Those countless drunken nights were real. Trembling all over, my husband's warm, broad palm enveloped mine. I looked up, surprised, my eyes red, meeting his gaze which seemed to offer reassurance. In front of everyone, Shang Xingzhou led me onto the stage. The Shen Group CEO looked smug, certain we were ruined, that the marriage alliance was now worthless. Taking the microphone from the host, my husband uttered a single, light sentence that left the crowd stunned. My wife and I were just playing a little game when we were dating. Who took these photos? Not only was everyone else shocked, I was wide-eyed with disbelief. Shang Xingzhou calmly paused the slideshow. On the first photo, in the corner, sat my husband. His God-gifted profile was unmistakable, and in that New York street photo, he stood just 5 meters away from me, wearing a cap and a loose hoodie, watching me intently. Shang Xingzhou's gaze turned sharp. If Mr. Shen is so interested in our dating history, I don't mind sharing more. But this is a charity gala, let's not lose focus, Mr. Shen's face flushed crimson, clearly not expecting this turn. Shang Xingzhou put down the microphone and spoke softly, for only the three of us to hear. Whoever followed and photographed my wife back then probably never thought these would be used today. Weren't you careful enough to check the photos before releasing them, Shen? Public opinion is the easiest to sway. The crowd that moments ago whispered about my deceit, my being a packaged fake socialite, now toasted my father, envying his daughter and son-in-law's perfect relationship, as if it were just a minor, insignificant episode. But for me, it had stirred a tidal wave. The plane tickets to New York, his so-called ex-girlfriend abroad. Why he looked familiar from the start. No wonder I always felt a Chinese presence during my many drunken hazes. I thought it was another drunkard like me. I never imagined it was him. Pity my memory was terrible. Every time I got drunk, I blacked out. Even after I changed my lifestyle, I never remembered that Chinese face. He remained a blur in my mind. Now, that blur sharpened, merging with the man before me. I regretted not meeting him sooner. But it turned out, he had been watching over me, long before I knew. We escaped the hypocritical world of fame and fortune. The night breeze blew strong by the river. My clothes and hair fluttered. Through the gusting wind, I asked him, Shang Xingzhou, why? His voice, carrying on the wind, reached me. Because the photo that fell out was of me and your mother, Liani. During the time my parents were divorcing, she was, in my heart, a mother figure. So he felt grateful. After my mother passed, his care extended to me, becoming the only one who cared if I lived or died. That's why he was so certain my mother knew what an exceptional man I'd married. What about agreeing to the arranged marriage? Was it also because I'm her daughter? Shang Xingzhou's gaze, fixed on me, was tender yet resolute. It was never about complying with an arrangement. From the very beginning, it was my long-planned scheme to have you. Suddenly, I felt no regret. My mother had already met the man who could give me happiness. He is wonderful, and she knew.